Oh, my name is Myrah Brown Green, and the name of my book is Pieced Symbols, Quilt Blocks from the Global Village. It's a quilt book, but it it's a technique called foundation piecing. However, because I have a PhD in art history, I wanted it to have some information about each of the symbols that appear in the book. So there is about a page devoted to each symbol, the image, the pattern, and there's a cross-culture section. So the symbols are based on 6 continents from around the world. And the cross-culture section talks about, so for example, it talks about the symbol from a specific country, and then in the cross-cultural section it will tell you that this particular symbol is used in other cultures, maybe another continent. So it just shows how diverse this world is and what a melting pot it actually is.
How did you get interested in quilting?
I've always been interested in working with my hands. I've been a creative person. My parents were creative or are creative, and I I just picked up something um, in the arts. I mean, it was just one of the things I preferred creating than playing the sports with the other children. I mean, you would find me probably in an art room or in an art class. My mother made sure I had access to those things. So, I mean, I've always sewed. Quilt making, I think I started quilt making in about the late to the middle, like maybe the late 90s. I actually made my first quilt um, that I had, I think, on exhibit at this gallery. I did my own show. I just put together something. I said I wanted to make something to hang on the wall that would heal people. And so that's what the quilts were about for me. So I guess around the 90s, I got interested in it, but I've sewn and I've done crafts all my life, and I've watched my mother sew. So,
And you sewed a quilt for the Obama inauguration. How did you get involved with that?
yeah, I got a call from this man, Roland Freeman. He chose 47 quilters to represent the 47th president, and I happened to be one of them. And the show began in Washington D.C. at the Historical Society, and then a woman named Dr. Carolyn Maslumi from Cincinnati, Ohio, she decided that she wanted to put together an exhibition of quilters from around the world, actually, who had created quilts based on the Obamas, and so, as a matter of fact, they just had the opening of the first show of her first showing in Wilberforce at the historically black institution, college and museum. So that was exciting this past weekend.
What is the hardest thing about quilting, and do you have any advice for other people who want to get into quilting? Because clearly you're a master quilter, but maybe somebody who wants to get into quilting, like, what advice do you have for somebody?
Well, I think you should just go for it. I'm a self-taught quilter, and I mean, I've taken some workshops, but I just try to teach myself something new, and I do it. And quilt making nowadays, I mean, there's so many new techniques out there that people can do. I mean, my book, for example, is on the foundation piecing technique, but a lot of people who don't choose to do foundation piecing buy the book because of the symbols, and you can apply them to other techniques. My mother, she started quilting through me, which, my mother's side of the family did tatting and crochet and embroidery and cross stitch. And so, it was on my other side of the family that did the quilt making, but I didn't even know that until my grandmother. I would visit my grandmother a few years, regularly before she, on my father's side, before she transcended. And but just go for it. Just gather things that you want. There's no quilt police that's going to come and say you've done it, in a way that is not acceptable to society. And enjoy what you do. That's the main thing. Enjoy what you do. If it turns into something else where you want to, sell your work, then so be it. But the main thing is, if you're not enjoying it, then I would say don't do it. But and there's plenty of guilds. Join a guild, a quilt guild. There's guilds, and there's Sisters in Stitches, in um, in Boston, in the Boston area, um, which is an African American quilt group. And so there's different quilt groups out there that you can join. So, and look for those. And then just get on the internet. When I did my book, I put a call out to quilters from around the world. People sent me, I sent them, I sent them a call saying, is anybody interested in using my patterns to make a quilt? And I got calls back from all over the world. I even have a quilt in the book, created by a woman who is from Israel. So, and she's never met me face to face. If we were to walk down the street, we'd pass each other. But she sent me her quilt. These women sent me quilts. And I had to keep them I guess I had their quilts for over a year. So, just keep that in mind. The quilt community is very friendly and open, and, there's so many, like the internet brings us together a lot too. So, there's a lot of quilt lists out there. You can join those, so there's a lot of ways of getting involved.